Hello and welcome to another episode of the Happy Head Podcast. My name is Paul and I'm your host today. I'm joined by Lisa Billingham, who has spent the past 20 minutes trying to reorganize her background because we couldn't get, not me, I don't give a monkeys, but she wasn't happy with it. She'd be left, right, up, down, dark, light, blue, round, square, God knows. Good morning, Lisa. How are you doing? Are you now comfortable?
Thank you. Good morning, Paul. Yes, I'm fine. Thank you.
Oh, it's just so funny because when the camera came on after we sort of hit the connection for Zoom, you were moving stuff around. Then you kind of like move it in, and then you dropped a cup on the floor and God knows what.
Yeah, I nearly dropped my hard drive into my water.
Yeah, that would have gone down well, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Hard drives and water just don't mix.
No, definitely not. Definitely not.
And you were just talking, you finally got your course uploaded, but it's not available yet. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah, yeah. Recorded all the videos, the meditations, all the handouts, all everything, and I'm now uploading it onto Thinkific, so it will be released within the next couple of days. Thankfully.
Okay. So that's the end of the show, folks. Lisa's promoted her thing, and I'll be on to the next one next week. So, Lisa, listen, who is Lisa? Why are you on the show today? What are we talking about?
I wrote my debut novel in 2020 during lockdown, which was based on the story of my life, if you like. But I wrote it as a novel because I didn't want to do the name and shame and you hurt me, you upset me, and all that rubbish. So I thought, right, I'll turn it into a work of fiction, see if I can get some audience for it. And that's basically just everything's just really led from that, to be honest. I've had some amazing reviews. I enjoyed writing it, and the writing part of it was cathartic. Somebody said to me, well, why do you want to write a book? And I said, well, I've got nothing else to do. Because I'd been working in Fuerteventura, so I got no job, and I was like, oh, I just might as well. And they were like, no, why do you want to write this book? And I said, well, I suppose it's still part of the healing process for me. After going through mental health issues, abuse, major surgery as in hysterectomy, and there's still bits that you think, actually, let's just see if we can do a bit more healing. So I used the writing as the healing, and I found it was quite profound. Yet when I was writing parts of the chapters, I had to walk away from some of them and think, I can't write that. And then come back a bit later on, and there were tears and there was laughter. So it was a really good experience, to be honest. And then the second part of it, so the first part of it was writing it for me, really. And then the second part of it was to help other people, because there's so many different topics in there that there's so many people's lives that it can touch. And that was the second name for the book. And it started to work. So it does what it says on the tin. It's helping people. So
did you go down the self-publishing route, or did you get yourself a publisher and they did all the kind of put it on paper kind of thing?
No, I actually went self-publishing. I had an editor, a developmental editor, to help me put it together as a book. Because when I sent it over to her and I went, that's it. She went, oh, I love your notes. We can do something with this. And I was like, oh, my goodness. I've got to start all over again. And she says, no, you haven't. You've just got to put it into a readable story. So she helped me to do that. And then by the time I'd done that, I thought, I can't go through the rejection after rejection letter, which is inevitable with publishers or agents. You've got to find the right fit for you, and it may not be the right time or whatever. So I thought, no, I'm not going to do that. I am going to self-publish. And at the moment, it's only available on Amazon, but over a period of time, I intend to spread that to put it onto more platforms. But Amazon was the easiest to self-publish on, so I just went with it. And it's there now, so mission accomplished.
What you said you were working out in Fuerteventura? What were you doing out there?
Yeah. I was a holiday rep. I was made redundant in 2017, 2017. Yeah, I had my surgery in 2016, and I went back to work, and I still wasn't right. You know, you're looking at a good 18 months recovery from a hysterectomy, and I still wasn't right. So redundant, they were restructuring, as they do, and redundancy was on the table, and I said, I'm taking it no matter what. I'm taking it, and I did. And that was in 2017. So I set up a business then, or started to set up a business then, and it just didn't sit right. I didn't have a break away from everything that I needed to get myself right before I went straight into a business. And I thought, no, can't do this. So I applied. I went to Fuerteventura as a holiday, actually. And then when I came back, I thought, I've got to do more travelling. I'd not travelled for 19 years because of my fear of flying. So I'd come back and started to Google jobs abroad. And a job application for TUI came up. So I applied for it, got the job, and went to work in Menorca for 6 months. Hard work, really hard work. But after the first 3 months and started to settle down and things, it's completely different to anything I'd ever done before. You're in a hot country for a start off. I'm not used to the sun. The job's not the easiest. But once I'd settled and I knew what I was doing, I started to enjoy the lifestyle, because it's completely different to the UK. Completely different, mainly because of the weather. And their traditions, obviously. You know, they do a family lunch at lunchtime, and, you know, they make a proper meal of it. So, and it's quite nice. And then I came back from there, put my house up for rent, and went to work in Fuerteventura for 3 months. It should have been 9, but we had to come back because of the pandemic. So it was a decision made by somebody else, but it turned out to be a really good one, because this is my right path now. I think I knew I wasn't going to carry on doing that. That was more of I suppose that was a running away in some respects, but it was also a finding myself as well. You know, I don't want to be in the rat race that I was in before. I don't want to have the lifestyle where I'm stressed 99.9% of the time. And so it was a massive learning curve, but it was well worth it.
And so tell me, what is the right path that you're on now, Lisa?
I now help others to tell their story as a work of fiction. So I use the healing process of writing, and I incorporate it with crystals to help other people move on from their past, whether it's mental health issues or trauma. That's what this course is about. And the workshops will come later on. And then I will also write the second book, because the people that have read the first one are saying, when are you writing the second one? When are you writing? I keep promising that I am, and I'm not. I have done some, I'm not lying, I have done some, but I've left it until I've actually got the course out there and I can concentrate on it properly. And then I'll come back to it and then publish that as well. So
I can understand writing a non-fiction book, because you kind of go like from A to Z, don't you?
Yes.
Yeah. How do you fictionalize a life story? What process do you go through to kind of say, well, this happened, but how do I change it so it becomes part of a story? How do you actually do that? What's the process you have to go through?
I probably did it backwards, actually, because I do most things backwards. But I'd got the notes that I sent to Kathy, my editor, and I'm like, how can I, exactly what you just said, how can I do this, but in a work of fiction? So I took it right back to the beginning, and I almost had to take myself out of the equation and look at it as if I'm somebody else, somebody looking from the outside in, if you like. And part of that was looking at the characters in there. I didn't want the characters to look like a particular person or sound like a particular person. So it was, well, how old is she? When is it set? What happens to her throughout it? What happens to the other characters? You know, how do they get involved in her life? And how does that affect them? And the second book will be somebody else's take on the same timeline and the way they feel about the situations. And it was quite interesting to do because it's completely different. I was going to do an autobiography and I thought, but nobody knows me, so nobody's going to buy it. I can do a self-help book, which I do plan to do based on the course. But to start with, it was the enjoyment of writing something new as well, to write something that's creative from inside you. And it was intermingling things that I'd seen or things that I'd observed and things that had happened to me to make a story out of it, because there's a lot in the book that hasn't happened to me. But if I just wrote about what has, I'd be like, well, I'd have no audience because they'd all like, oh, God, give me strength. I don't want to read any more of this. And that's not what I wanted. It wasn't about the it wasn't about the feeling sorry for it or, oh, God, not again. It was about the empathy that you feel for another person. Because I know people go through what I've been through. And I know there'll be more, and I know there's people in the past that have gone through it. And it was more about giving them some hope that there are people, A, out there that can help you, and B, out there that have been in the same situation as you have, so you aren't on your own.
Have you always enjoyed writing? Have you written stuff before?
No, strangely enough, again, it was a suggestion by one of my counsellors that I had when I was suffering myself. And she said, well, why don't you just write about it? And I'm like, what for? And I went away and I thought, well, what have I actually got to lose? I can try and write. So it wasn't a creative writing thing. That was a therapy type thing. So it was journaling. And I didn't do journaling in the typical sense. It was literally just write down how you're feeling at that moment in time. And I did that for a good number of years, in amongst all the other like therapies and counselling and different things. Never thought anything of it. I'd got a lot of notes, the handwriting, because I always used to handwrite, and then I started to type some of it up a few years ago. And while I was in Fuerteventura, I thought I need to really start writing my book. That spark of an idea was there. I write the book, despite the fact that I'd destroyed 90% of the notes that I'd written. I'd started again when I had my surgery, thinking, right, now's the time to write the book rather than actually destroying everything. So it was going back. And I suppose the book, writing the novel, was the next chapter in that process, because I'd destroyed everything else. So I'd got rid of the past. Now I was almost reliving it to put it into a context for a novel.
Mm-hmm.
So it was quite the first lot of writing was purely, there was no thought there for turning it into anything at all. It was purely just to get rid of the way I was feeling. And I couldn't even read half of it, if I'm honest. It was just literally scroll across the page, and it was just to get that feeling out. And then to try and, write something positive after that, which was the hardest thing to do. And then, I forgive so-and-so, I forgive myself more than anything, and, I won't do that again. And then, so that was all the therapy process. It wasn't until I was abroad that I thought, right, now I've got to do something productive with what I've experienced, if you like, and something that's going to help others.
So when did it go from a thing you kind of had to do to a process that you actually enjoyed? Because you did say that you actually enjoyed writing the book. Yeah.
When I think at the point I really started to get into it and think, yeah, I can actually do this, was when I probably sent the book for the first edit, not the developmental edit where she was helping me write it and things. And obviously it still needed a lot of work. But at that point, I suppose the therapy was almost over from what had happened before. And it was the moving on, the putting it behind you, and actually seeing, well, I've got something here that's come from my life experiences, but that's also creative. It's got a piece of me in it, and it's the process of enjoyment. And when I write, because you're writing a book, you'd think, well, I'll type because that's the easiest thing to do, but I actually write first. So even though that past has gone, whenever I'm writing, and when I'm writing for the next book, I write first so that I then type, and the typing up is the first edit, if you like. And then send it off to an editor, because I would never not send it off to an editor. But the whole process, I think, if I look back, I enjoyed it, but it was for a different reason. The first part of it was for the therapy, and then the second part of it was like, I can see a book coming together here. When you get the cover designed and you think, wow, I never imagined I would be able to do anything like this. Yeah, I know millions of people do it, but you sit there and you think, I've actually produced this. I've got to be really cheeky in that.
So, with your course, how are you going to take people who have never strung more than a few words together to ending up with a full, 200-page book? What kind of process do you take people through?
I don't actually take them through to producing the book in this particular course. I only take them through to producing a short story, or maybe the first chapter, because this particular course is more about the healing part of it.
Oh, okay.
And using the crystals, using your own energy, using the writing to actually let go of the past, but to also distract yourself and use the writing to, as well as heal, to move you forward as well. Because once you've done the healing part, you would then move on to do the creative writing part. So you might get to the creative writing part and think, actually, I don't want to include any of my story in it. I'm just going to have a go at this for the sheer hell of it. And that's fine. It's whatever the individual needs to get out of the process of writing, if you like.
I've just got a question. You said that, the writing helps you get over the past. How does that work? Because if I'm writing about something that's happened to me a year, 10, 15, 20 years ago, sure, not surely, but am I not living it as I'm writing it?
In a certain way, yes. It's, some people don't do it. The course is set up so that they don't actually have to do that particular module if they don't want to. If they'd rather just look at it from a creative writing point of view, then they can start with whichever bit they want to start with. When I was writing it, I thought, you need to do this before you do this, before you do this. And I thought, but you actually don't. You can do it in whatever order you like. And some people don't, because a lot of people, a friend of mine would never, ever, is like, well, that's gone. But that's the sort of person that he is. Like, that's gone. That means nothing. That was yesterday. But a lot of people hold on to the past, and there's different ways of trying to let it go. And I found writing was one of the ways. It's not the be all and end all, and it's not the answer. And I think writing it when I was journaling was also reliving it. But I'd got to relive it to understand it, to understand why I'd made those choices, or why I'd let myself get into that position or that situation, and why I repeated some of them as well. And by writing it, and then I destroyed that. Then when I carried on afterwards writing it, I actually started to reflect on it later on. The first part was just about literally get rid of it, just do what you can to get rid of it. then the next part for me was, well, why? What lesson have I learned there? Why did that affect me in that way when it was such a tiny thing? Which it often is, isn't it? It's just compounded by so many other things. And the one that sticks in my head was when my boiler broke and I was stressed out from work. I was in a bad relationship and that was it. It finished me off. Doctors, off sick, that was it. And the boiler was fixed within an hour of me smacking my head virtually up against the wall in the kitchen at work. But that was the thing that tipped me over the edge. And you think, well, looking back now, you think it was fixable. Why did I react in that way? And I started then to look at things, and you start to see the patterns that you formed, and you start to look at how you can break those patterns. And that was what the writing did for me, was to help me break those self-destructive patterns, really.
Right.
Which was what I was literally on a self-destruct. Press that button and good night Vienna. I was on a self-destruct path, and I had to do something about it, or I would have self-destructed.
Was that the moment that you decided to go and seek out therapy from counsellors and what have you?
Yeah. And that was in 2011. That was when it had been coming on for a long time, even back to childhood, with bullying and different things. And I just didn't realise, I just didn't know how much it had affected me. And then I'd got to that point and I was like, I couldn't function. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what I was doing. I'd done my job for I don't know how many years before then. And I was like, I'm broken. I need fixing. And that was it. I'd got to go. And I did a lot of different therapies, counselling. I started on medication, and then I went back to doctors and said, I don't want this. I don't want this. I need to find another way. And he's like, oh, but this will help you, and you'll take you so much longer. And I said, okay, I don't want this. And then I had reflexology, massage, you name it. Then I had crystal therapy, coaching, all sorts of different things. And then I qualified in the crystal therapy and the coaching, and then started the writing was the last. I suppose it was the first thing and the last thing, really, because I started with the writing, but looking at it in a completely different way, for the process that I actually went through to get to where I am now.
And how do you hope that your course will help people kind of deal with their own trauma, their own hassles? Sort of help them not get to the stage where you got, where the boiler kind of was the end of it for you.
Yeah, it is kind of meant for people that are at that stage where I was really. I didn't know where to turn. I couldn't focus, I couldn't function, I couldn't speak to people. Like, this conversation would never have happened. Conversations with basically anybody would never have happened. And because it's online, it's in your own time, in your own way. And that's what I wanted at the time. I actually contacted Samaritans, couldn't pick the phone up, but no way was I going to do a face-to-face. It was all done via email. And the beauty of it is all the instructions are there. If you want one-to-ones, then obviously they can contact me. But the working through it at your own pace, whether you start it with chapter 3 or whether you start it with chapter 1, it's your journey. It's just there to help and support you in, well, this is what I suggest. This is the crystal I suggest. This is what I suggest you do in this course. And I do also throw in other work to do, for want of a better phrase, other exercises, as well as the writing. Mm-hmm. So you're not just writing your book or your story. There's other things to get you from that state of being in a mental fog to seeing a little bit clearer. So there's self-love things in there. There's letter writing in there, different things, because different things will suit different people. Some people will skip certain things and some people will do certain things more than once. And I say in the course, I look at it as peeling an onion. Deal with one thing, then deal with something else, then deal with something else. So you may do chapter 2 3 or 4 times, and you may do chapter 3 once. Do you know what I mean? So it takes you through however you want to do it. And I was planning on, drip feeding it and all the rest of it like you do with courses. And I thought, just make it all open so people can choose which one they want to do. They might listen to all the videos and then go, well, that's the one that I need to do now. And it's to move them forward to loving their life. Because I did go from a state of, I don't want to be here anymore, to now loving the life that I'm living. I don't think anybody's life is perfect at the moment, if it ever is. And I don't think anybody's life, many people's lives are ideal at the moment because of the situation we've all been thrown into with the pandemic. But it's the way that you look at it rather than actually enjoy the moment, as they say. We can't change what's happened. I can't change anything that I've done in the past. I've just got to accept it, learn to move on, basically, and love my life, and I do now. So I know it can work.
So what does the future hold? You've mentioned maybe doing a second book.
Yes.
What's next for you?
The second book, and I'm also looking at doing some workshops as well based around the course. And I suppose I'll just see how the course goes first, because I would like to get the second book finished and published by the end of the year if I can. The last book took me 7 months of solid just working on the book, so like full-time working on the book. So I would do part-time or maybe a little bit more work on the book to get it out in the next 6 months, just under 6 months, if not early 2022, for publishing the book. And then more courses, more books, who knows. I've written down so many ideas for different books and courses, and I'm like, you have to concentrate. I start so many things and never finish any of them. So the fact that I actually finished the book was just a mega achievement in itself. And then now I'm nearly there, I'm getting the course out there, so I'm like, wow, I've actually finished something.
Yeah, it's true though. A lot of people do start stuff and, then for whatever reason don't complete it. It's like, I just find it bizarre that people will spend money on a course and not get halfway through, which is really, really strange.
Yeah. Somebody said to me, oh, the way you set it up, if you set it up like this, then they'll buy it and they'll finish it. And I went, it doesn't matter how you set it up, how you sell it, how you offer payment plans, whatever you do. If people don't finish the course, people don't finish the course. And I said, to get the best out of it, you need to finish the course. If you choose not to, it's up to you. It's like that old saying, isn't it? You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It's but it is a shame though, because people obviously feel the need to do something like your course, but then for whatever reason they kind of, maybe it just becomes too raw, it uncovers too much, and then they're just not able at that moment in time to kind of push on with it.
Yeah. And that's the other thing that I say in the course as well, in the video instructions and the guides, that you might leave this for a while. I do suggest that you finish the course within 6 months. Now, that might mean that for your 6 months, you do maybe 3 of the chapters and you come back to it later on. But I do say, try and finish the whole of the course. And obviously it depends on how much time you've got, because there's a lot of work that you need to do throughout the course. But because I leave it completely open and you have the course for life, you can come back and do it whenever you need to. I haven't journaled for probably over a year actually now, thinking about it, because I haven't felt the need to. So the idea behind the course is that it moves you to a place where you can be comfortable, you're happy with your life. But then things happen, don't they? Like nobody was expecting to be thrown into a pandemic. So in a situation like that, or something else happens, you can go back and pick which bit of the course you actually need to do again. You actually need to write, and it might not be the writing of your story. It might be one of the other exercises in there that you think, well, actually that really helped me last time. I'll go back and do that again. So you can pick and choose.
That's an interesting point, because I was journaling for about a year. I was doing this, it's called Morning Pages, from a book which The Artist's Way. And I was doing 3 pages every single morning consistently for about a year. And then I woke up one morning and thought, not doing it.
Yeah.
And I actually got cross with myself. And I was talking to a friend about this, and she said, well, maybe you don't need it anymore, which is why you stopped. You'd written out whatever it was you'd written out, because the one thing I didn't do was go back and read any of the stuff. I've still got the books around somewhere, but the thing for me was writing the stuff out, and I've got terrible handwriting anyway, so it took me weeks to decipher it, but I deliberately didn't go back and read the stuff, because in this particular book that I was reading, the whole point wasn't to go back and read it. It was just to kind of like get it out of your head and onto paper, and then just leave it there.
Yeah.
And so, I can get it that some people may find they get to a point where, you know what, that's it, I just can't do it anymore right now, and then just leave it for a while. But the important thing is particularly on a course, is to actually go back and finish it, because you don't know what benefits you might be missing out on by only doing parts 1, 2, and 3 and not finishing 4, 5, and 6.
Exactly. Absolutely. Exactly. Yeah. It's very similar to my journey. That's what I'd got to a stage where I had written it out like you had, and I didn't need to do that anymore. I needed to do something different, and that's the thing. Somebody said to me, because I said I've worked with several coaches in my lifetime, in different guys. It could be at work, or it could have been maybe teachers or whatever, obviously. And they were like, "Well, do you think it's a good idea to have so many coaches?" And I'm like, "Well, everybody's got their skill set. So I'm not an editor. So I thought, well, how can I do this? If I get people to a point where they've written a book, then they're going to need editing. They're going to need my help to edit, and I'm not an editor." And I thought, well, I don't need to go to that length. I just need to get them through to the healing process part of it, and they've produced something. It doesn't matter what that something is, because then by that time they can either go back over it and think, oh, I need to do that again, or they'll move on to the next stage of it, and maybe I'm in a position to help them with that then. But if not, it'll be like, well, can you recommend somebody? Well, yeah, speak to so-and-so, or, whoever, and they can help you with that next stage of your journey. Because sometimes you meet coaches, you meet friends, you meet a lot of people. They might just come into your life for that meeting, or for that hello or goodbye, whatever. But then they might be there for a few months, a few years, and then all of a sudden they're not, and that's okay. And it took me a long time to realise that, because people in my life and my cycle have changed, as have the coaches. I don't work with coaches that I've worked with in the past anymore. They're working with the people that need their skills, and I've moved on to people whose skills I need. And the same with my course. People who need that my skills will join it, and then once they've finished it, they'll leave it for a few months or whatever, come back to it, and then they'll move on to the next chapter in their life.
How can people find out about the course and when it becomes available?
I'm on Facebook. I've actually set up a Facebook group now, a new one, because my old one just broke, which is the same title as the course, which is Tell Your Story and Heal Your Life. That's new. I only set that up yesterday. I'm on Pinterest, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. I have a website, lisambillinghamcom, and I'm starting to post out there. Plus, it'll be on Thinkific, so the landing page will be there as well. Or if they want to drop me an email, lisa@lisambillinghamcom, and I can give them all the links. But it'll be on social media, and I'll do it as a pinned post on on the different platforms, just so people can find it easily enough.
And I'll publish all those links in the show notes. Listen, Lisa, it's been brilliant chatting to you. Any last words, any final thoughts?
I would say to anybody who is, get me words out, who is struggling, and I would say there's probably quite a lot, because the situation that people find themselves in at the moment, is to reach out. Never be afraid to reach out. It doesn't matter who it is, just reach out and speak to people and tell people how you are feeling.
I completely agree.
It doesn't mean you've got to write about it. It doesn't mean you've got to do what either of us suggest. It just means just reach out, just ask for the help if you need it.
Yeah, 2 words, reach out.
Reach out, yeah, absolutely.
Listen, Lisa, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Paul. Lovely to speak.
Thanks for watching, folks. See you in the next episode. Bye now.